Thank you, Ms. Srinath, for conducting this session. Thank you, eminent panelists, for sharing your views with us here today. May I now request Mr. Firdaus Vanderwala to kindly please present mementos to our distinguished speakers. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal. Our heartfelt thanks to Mr. Sudhir Jalan. Our sincere thanks to Mr. N.K. Singh. Our thanks to Mr. Shubhashish Gangopadhyay. And our thanks to Ms. Supriya Srinath for conducting the session. Thank you, Mr. Vanderwala, for joining us on stage. May I request you, sir, please kindly stay back for a photo op. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of the first session for the National Leadership Conclave. We would like to break. Please download the AIMA app to participate in the live polling during NLC. You can download AIMA mobile app from AIMA website, www.aima.in homepage, or from Google Play Store and iTunes Store. For users who are not using Android and Apple phones, you can take part in the poll by clicking the direct polling link on AIMA website, www.aima.in. Ladies and gentlemen, may I take the opportunity to remind you that we are conducting a poll during the sessions. We request you to download the AIMA mobile app to participate in the live polling during NLC. The user ID is NLC and the password is AIMA. May I also request you all to please do remember to fill up the question slips, which were already a part of your delegate kit. Please do make a note of your questions on the question slips and pass them on to the nearest volunteer. And we're all set to receive the esteemed speakers for the next session here in our midst. Meanwhile, may I once again request you all to please be seated. Political and financial conditions for timely and viable creation of such infrastructure. Further, the productivity of infrastructure has to be enhanced through smart technologies and imaginative governance. India has to promote the use of intelligent and flexible machines and prepare to suitable workforce to make, run, and maintain such machines. India can extend its proven excellence in IT to the shop floor and become a global manufacturing option. Some of the questions that we would like you to ponder during this session are: how can India plan and build infrastructure for future growth and not just for catching up with present needs? How can the political and policy environment be reformed for quick and easy implementation of infrastructure and industrial projects? How can India use technology to improve productivity of the existing and new infrastructure? Ladies and gentlemen, members of the audience, may I once again request you all to please kindly be seated. Limited, India, and head Bajaj Group. May I also invite on stage Mr. R.C. Bhargava, Non-Executive Chairman of the Board, Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Mr. Rahul Bajaj, Chairman, Bajaj Auto Limited India and Head, Bajaj Group. Accompanying him on stage is Mr. Sudhir Jalan, Chairman, Neo Foods Private Limited. And we are waiting for Mr. R.C. Bhargava, Non-Executive Chairman of the Board, Maruti Suzuki India Limited, to join us in a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have already seen on the screen earlier, the poll question for this session is Make in India campaign creating fresh manufacturing capacity and jobs? May I request you all to please log in to the AIMA app or website and please do participate. Your opinion is valuable to us. Meanwhile, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Sudhir Jalan, Neo Foods Private Limited. He's a commerce graduate and an MBA from Kolkata. He's a premier businessman with business interests all over India. He has been associated in senior management positions as chairman and managing director and CEO of various companies in diversified industries. Mr. Jalan has had the honor of presiding over the apex body of the Chambers of Commerce in India, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and was president of All India Management Association. Mr. Jalan was also president of International Chamber of Commerce, India, and has served on the board of Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata, and is presently on the board of Indian Institute of Management, Rohtak. Mr. Jalan also sits on the board of several other companies of repute, and it is indeed our pleasure to have him here with us to deliver the welcome address and initiate the session. Meanwhile, we are awaiting the arrival of Mr. R.C. Bhargava, Non-Executive Chairman of the Board, Maruti Suzuki India Limited, joining us any moment.
Mr. Rahul Bajaj, ladies and gentlemen, my apologies on behalf of AIMA for being slightly late. I think Ramesh Bhai is stuck in traffic. He should be here in a minute or two, but we don't want to hold the proceedings, so we will start and he will join us. You have been here in the morning, and I think you have heard a very lively discussion on the budget. In the last 3 days, I think the mood of the country, the economic mood of the country, has changed for the positive. The government of India has delivered on its promise, has kept the fiscal deficit in control at 3.5%, which most of us were doubting, and we were expecting it to be about 3.7, but he has done extremely well. He has done his best, and I think he has succeeded, will succeed in reviving demand on the rural sector by putting as much as 280,000 crores in the hands of the rural sector by way of rural roads, irrigation, rural electricity. He has promised every village will be electrified by 2018. No mean achievement. On top of this, he has given a great thrust to infrastructure, particularly, again, roads, railways, and energy. So the ground rules have been laid for India to surge. Now it's for all of us to see how India not only achieves the stipulated rate of, say, 7.5%, but goes into the next trajectory of 8.5%. In the three sectors, one sector will play a major part in this, and that is the sector of industry. Unlike in China and other countries, industry and manufacturing still play a small role in the overall GDP. But it is industry which provides a huge job orientation. And it is the backbone, the spine on which the services industry grows. So the thrust of the Prime Minister and this government has been on developing industry into India. And that's why the new themes, Make in India, Startup India, Skill India, all these things are coming. Now, we have two captains of industry here, as successful as any in the country. If one rode a four-wheeler, the other made Bharat ride on his two-wheelers. And both have become names to be reckoned with and are known even in smaller rural sector. The brand Bajaj and Maruti are brands of which India is proud. And they have all struggled with adversity in their times. Rahulji has been in a family business, but the way he has got it grown geometrically, taking over from his father, and then passing on the baton very smoothly to a completely different type of younger generation whose thinking may be at odds with him. But very smooth succession, the company goes on. The governance standard, perhaps in Bajaj Auto, are laudable. I've had the personal privilege of knowing Rahul Bhai and learning from him all the time. One of my apologies that we have got Rahul Bhai at this session is, he should normally be kept for after lunch sessions. No one can go to sleep when he speaks. He is full of wit and humor. Ramesh Bhai took over Maruti when it was tottering, almost closed. And how from a public sector unit to a joint sector unit to a private sector unit, he has evolved and make Maruti a brand of which India is proud. Perhaps his car, half of India travels on his cars, which is no mean achievement. When we have two such stalwarts, it's not for me to give a lecture. I just wanted to pose a few questions to them or some thoughts on which they will perhaps dwell on in their courses. India is on the growth path. Roadmaps have been laid. Should we now also think in terms of specialized clusters, like China did it with SEZs? Should we have clusters? Clusters around either IT, clusters around raw material resource of that area, clusters where labor is cheap. Say, for example, why should the garment industry be shifting to Bangladesh and Vietnam and not come to India from China? With labor could be abundant and cheap. Should there be a cluster with specialized focus on that? These are some thoughts which came to me. And a rather controversial one, perhaps Rahulji may call it even a naughty one. It was said a few years back that India leapt from agri-sector right into the services sector, bypassing the manufacturing era. Manufacturing stayed, but in low gear. Whereas China went along from agriculture to manufacturing. Is today our emphasis on going back on manufacturing the right course? Or should we still be led by the third generation, which is the services sector. Of course, I'm not saying manufacturing won't have a role, but which should be given a greater role, services or manufacturing? This was a bit of a controversial question I thought I'll pose before you. And may I request Mr. Bhargava to start with it? The program would be something like this. I think each speaker will speak 10 to 12 minutes. Probably I'll get a discussion going for a few minutes between them, and then it will be left open to the floor. Mr. Bhargava.
I must apologize for being late. The question which Mr. Jalan has posed as to whether it should be manufacturing or